Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. In this episode we're going to be working on the Forester. We're going to be doing rear discs, pads and handbrake shoes, and we're going to adjust those handbrake shoes if we need to. Now, I know I'm going to be working on a Subaru and you might think, well, I don't own a Subaru, so I'm not going to watch this video because it's not going to be helpful for me. Well, most vehicles share the same setup when it comes to brakes. At the front as well, but we're doing at the rear, so we're focusing on the rear. Most vehicles, the ones that they have a normal handbrake, no electric handbrake, okay, what they do is basically you got your disc, right, and you got your caliper with your pads. But then inside that disc, you got the shoes, which basically work the same way that your pads work. The pads sandwich the disc, so when it rotates, it just grabs it and it holds it in place. And the shoes, when you pull your handbrake lever, what it does is that they expand, they touch the wall of the disc, and basically it holds it in place so your car doesn't roll backwards or forwards. That's how it works. If you go on electric handbrake, it works a bit different. I have actually done a video on a Passat B7. I'm gonna just link it up here. Okay, it's up here, somewhere in there. I'll put it somewhere. That vehicle has an electric handbrake. So what basically it is, I'll go quickly through it. It is a piston that is located in your caliper, and what it does is when you press the button for the handbrake, that piston gets wound out and it presses the actual pads, and the pads sandwich the disc. Same way basically that your foot brake works, but this is for your handbrake and it's electric. So if you need to replace your rear brakes and you got a normal handbrake lever, this video might help you, so stay tuned and hopefully you like it. The first thing we need to do is chock the wheels. So just like that, one at the front, one at the back, and you want to repeat this on the other side as well. Once you got that done, if your car is automatic like my one and needs some parking, press your brake, put it in neutral, and then release the handbrake. Just make sure your car doesn't move, so we can push on the tire and the car isn't moving. Another thing we're going to do before we start dismantling everything is open up brake fluid reservoir. Just leave it loose there. Before we check up the car, what we're going to do is loosen the nuts a bit first, just a bit, not too much, so then once we check up the car, it's going to be a lot easier to remove this wheel. Once we check that our car is secure and not moving, what we need to do is jack up the car. Now, some cars have the same jacking point. Some cars have different jacking points. For example, Subarus, normally you can jack them up on the rear diff and you can jack them up the front right behind the engine. There's a plate there. It's all in your owner's manual, so just have a read if you're not sure. Some cars you can jack them up on the seals and they go marked, so I'm going to show you because on Subarus as well you can do it on the seals. If we come underneath the car, you can see here clearly that you got these two marks, so that is your jacking point, and you're going to have another one right at the front as well, so that's where you can jack up your car. Once we jack up the car, if you go a car like mine when you can jack it up from the rear, you can put your jack stands right at your jacking point, as you can see on mine. Once that is done and you got enough clearance, you can lower your jack until the car is resting on the jack stands, but do it slowly. And once that is done, you will want to pump your jack back up again, just so it's touching the car, whatever jacking point you're using. Just in case one of them collapse or anything happen, you still got another jacking point here and the car is not going to actually fall on you. And here we go setup. So we got caliper carrier, the pads, the disc, and our shoes is going to be inside here. What we're going to remove first is going to be our caliper, which in this case for this car is two 14mm, one here and one here, and then the actual caliper carrier, there are two 14s as well, which I'll show you in a minute. But before all of that, what we're going to do, what I like doing anyway, is using a bit of a penetrating oil on every bolt that we're going to be removing. Let it soak for a bit and then we can actually start taking things apart. At this point, the wind was so bad that you couldn't even hear me. So let me do some voiceovers and explain you what we're doing. We're removing the two 14 bolts that I mentioned before in order to be able to take your caliper out. Once we remove our bolts, we can proceed to remove our caliper. And if you've been watching my videos, I like to get a cable ties or a zip ties, I don't know what you call it, and just go through one of the holes of the caliper, hook it up to the probably spring or any sort of hole in the body and put it out of the way without kinking the actual brake pipe. Once that's done, we can remove our brake pads and we can proceed to remove our caliper carrier. In this case, the two 14 bolts at the back of the brake backplate. Once that's out of the way, we can remove our brake disc, which will give us access to our brake shoes. But I like to inspect always my brake disc inside to see how the shoes were wearing out, if there was any failure or not. After that, we can inspect those shoes. I did notice that the handbrake wasn't working as it should, and you can see there the plate that is holding the brake shoes in position has turned around. That shouldn't be like that, but the springs and everything else seems to be holding in place. Now we can attempt to remove our retainers with a set of long nose pliers. And if you look closely, the plate actually have some grooves that you can put your self pliers in one side and the other, and it will make it easier for you to turn and extract it. Once we manage to do that, we can remove the rest of the springs and remove our shoes. Now we're going to remove our handbrake cable that is attached to one of our handbrake shoes by using the self pliers again, pulling on the spring and then just unhooking it. For some reason they only sent me the actual brake shoe and not the lever where the handbrake cable pulls from, but they send the retainer. So what we're going to have to do is remove this retainer here, okay, and it has a washer underneath, and then we can transfer this to the new ones. The way I got it off basically is just with a screwdriver. I'm sure there's other ways to do it, but this way you're not really harming if you're careful. And what you do is play with this end here and that end there. Try to separate them, as you can see there, and push them back. Just being gentle. I mean, this is not going to be reused, but this bit is. So just be mindful with this one. What you do is just try to open this hole a bit more and then just try to push this one's up a bit, so then you can push it back, create a space right here at the back, as you can see, and then with something a bit smaller maybe you can just go like that and it will come off. Once we got it off, what we're going to do is just clean this before we put it on a new set of shoes. So we've got brake discs, brake pads, brake shoes, and all the clips and retainers and springs and all the good shit. Once it's nice and clean, we're gonna get a new shoe and we're gonna put it back where it goes. But you have two of them since you're doing both sides, right? So what you need to make sure is that you know which one is the one that you're gonna be using. Now, this sits always on the inside of the shoe, and since we're doing the offside rear first, right, this is going to be sitting here. For further reference, you got your old one here, and if it goes sitting like that, since this one goes at the back, you can see the pin, right, is pointing inwards, just like this one. So we can put this in here. It comes with new clips. We'll get a new washer retainer and a new clip, and we'll just slide it. Once you're happy with the position of your clip, you can see that they have incisions on both sides. So what you can do, just get a pair of pliers or mole grips and just go on the incisions, press them in, and then make sure that won't come off. Yep. Back outside into the wind, what we're going to do is clean every mounting point before we fit anything back on. Clean our brake shoe adjuster, clean our brake plate that goes between the shoes, and clean our caliper area where the brake pads are going to be sitting. On our next step, we're going to check if the sliders are no seize by pulling them like this. After that, we're going to check if our rubber is not perished or cracked at all. And to prevent those sliders from seizing, what we're going to do is take them out and apply a bit of copper grease around them. After this, we can start assembling everything back on. As you can see, I'm putting the handbrake cable back into the lever, which is attached to a handbrake shoe. Don't get frustrated if it takes you more than one attempt. It does happen to everyone. Once everything is back on, just check that everything is in place, nothing has moved, and as you can see, the plate that I showed you before now is in the right position with the new springs, the new retainers, and hopefully this time won't fucking move. And to adjust our handbrake shoes if we need to, we rotate this adjuster that is located at the bottom and it will push the shoes outwards. Just remember that your brake disc comes with a slim layer of oil from factory to prevent corrosion, so just use a bit of brake cleaner on it, inside and outside, before you fit it. Once your caliper area is clean, what we're going to do is put some copper grease in these groups here, both sides, then we can fit it. Once the caliper area is mounted, we're going to do the same thing with the pads. We're going to put a bit of copper grease just right here and here, just around this edge here on all of them. And the reason why I told you at the beginning to open your brake fluid reservoir is because we're going to have to push this piston back in, since our brake pads are going to be a lot thicker than the ones before. So either what you can use is this, which is basically a winder, so we can put that here, we can put that here, then we tighten it, we can start turning it. We need an adapter depending on the vehicle that you're working on. Or another thing that you can do is get your brake pad, put it this way in there, and get a big set of pliers. You can press right in the middle from here against here. The torque setting for the caliper area is 52 Newton meters, and the torque setting for your caliper is 37 Newton meters. Let's do the other side and use a bit of YouTube magic. And boom! Ask your friend to do it for you. Let's put the wheel back on and tighten the nuts enough so when the car is under its own weight, it's not going to fall on us. And let's get her down. Once your car is on the ground, remember to torque your wheel nuts to the specific torque setting on your owner's manual. And after that, just go for a test drive. When you go for a drive, I don't want you to be doing any sort of like emergency brake or hard braking. For the next 200 miles, and some people do it, some people don't do it, I like doing it, you're gonna bed in those pads. Okay, so what this means is that the pads are gonna get used to the friction with the discs. So for those first 200 miles, what you're gonna do is take it gentle. I know sometimes when you're driving, you're gonna have to brake hard because someone cut you off and stuff like that. But if you can prevent that, just for the first 200 miles, just do that. Just go gentle on the brakes. Let's say you went for a test drive, everything is nice, everything feels good, the braking feels good. You come back home and you can smell the brakes, they smell hot. This is normal. Unless your discs turn blue, it is normal. They're just breaking in, okay? Those parts are breaking in, they're making contact with the brakes, and there's going to smell. But the smell is going to go after a few miles. Don't worry about it. It's normal. Keep an eye on it, because I always like to do that. Keep an eye on it, just in case something changes. but it is normal. It is normal for them to smell a bit, okay? So don't worry about that. I tried to explain as much as I could. It was quite windy today, so that made it a tiny bit harder. Fucking loads. And just like that, we get to the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it helped you a bit. I hope you learned something new. And if you got any questions, just leave them below. I'll try to help you as much as I could. And yeah, that's it for today. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing if you do. And I shall see you very shortly. Bye!